Welcome back to Raised by Giants live discussion. Good to see everyone in the chat and any channel members and or moderators out there and anyone that's listening to the replay. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can download the audio only episodes on whatever podcast platform you listen to. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. The show drops on all of those platforms almost immediately after it's released on whatever platform you're currently listening to. We are a viewer supported show. We don't have any sponsorships, no advertising, no affiliate programs. It's just me. So if you'd like to help support the show, PayPal and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description. Also, you can send in super chats, super stickers. And if you would like a question or a comment to be highlighted, send in those super chats and super stickers during the show. Channel memberships are also available and are a great way to help support the channel monthly. And when you become a channel member, you get access to bonus episodes for being a channel member, and you get a huge back catalog of channel members only episodes. Click the more button underneath the title of this video to the drop down of the description. All of my links are there, including the link to sign up to be a channel member and all of my guest links as well. So today we have with us returning guest, author and filmmaker and writer and producer and star of our hit documentary, A Clockwork Shining, on Amazon Prime, Apple TV Plus, and also here to announce that it is currently on Vimeo. Jay Weidner, welcome back to the show. How's it going?
Hey, it's going really good. That's international now. Anybody can watch it from anywhere on earth through Vimeo. So anyway, how you doing, Ryder?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad that the movie is up on Vimeo because there's been a lot of people that's asked us that, aren't in the United States. It's not in the UK because it's available on Amazon in the United States and in the UK, but not anywhere else. So if you're in Canada, we've had a lot of people from Canada reach out to us and be like, hey, why can't we see the show? So now it's up. It's on. I got the link pinned in the chat, and also the link is in the description. We have a really interesting comment here because I've been seeing a lot of people talk about, well, first off, a lot of people about MK Ultra. MK Ultra has kind of been put into the zeitgeist a lot. A lot more people have been talking about it here recently. And also it seems like there's been like a Kubrick resurgence. Have you been seeing that going on?
Yeah, there is a lot of younger people that are suddenly discovering Kubrick and making YouTubes, and it's all very interesting, and they have some pretty interesting insights. So I was thinking, the first wave, of course, is Kubrick's films. The second wave started right after he died with an essay that I wrote called Alchemical Kubrick, which was read by about 10 million people, and actually became my second Kubrick Odyssey film. And then there was kind of a lull for a while. And then around 2009, another wave started up. So it's like every 10 years, the wave starts up again. And then there was another lull. And now we're back to people being interested in the works of Stanley Kubrick again, which is great. And, we definitely had something to do with it, with this film.
I agree. And I've seen a lot of stuff on Eyes Wide Shut as of lately, and as of recently. Space Angel here asked if was Kubrick murdered because of Eyes Wide Shut or something earlier in his career. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm actually the guy who sort of broke that story. I got a call, an anonymous call, after I'd written the Alchemical Kubrick article. Kubrick had just died, and I wrote it like right around the time that Eyes Wide Shut came out. And I got a lot of criticism, like, Kubrick wasn't into occult, and Kubrick wasn't into esoteric. Why are you saying all this crap? And then Eyes Wide Shut came out, and everyone just shut up. I just shut them all up. So I got a call from a guy, and I checked him out and everything. And he anonymous call. He wouldn't tell me who he was. I've told the story before. And he told me that there was a giant meeting in London where they showed the film to the Warner Brothers executives, and they hated it. And there's a huge argument. And then 5 days later, Kubrick died. And I don't know, he did take up cigarette smoking again. So that might, I don't know. And directing is really hard physically, especially when you're 70 years old. But at the same time, it is awfully strange. And it's awfully strange that there's so many continuity errors in Eyes Wide Shut, continuity errors that Kubrick would never do. And so filmmakers that have watched the film. I'm not alone. I forget the guy's name. He was on Joe Rogan recently, saying the same thing as I'm saying, that he thinks that he was killed, and he also thinks that the film was re-edited because there's just this. It's just not a Kubrick edit job. It's clunky and chunky, and there's continuity errors up the yin yang, and for no apparent reason. Like a car is coming down the road and it never goes by on the next shot, right? And you're like, what happened? That car disappeared? And so I suspect that it probably was. It's the interesting thing about his death. This one will really floor you. Is it happened exactly 666 days before January 1st, 2001, the first day of this most famous movie. And here's one that really gets you: 666 days before Kubrick died, that computer finally beat the chess champion. I forget the name of the chess champion now, but for the first time, a computer beat a chess champion in a game of chess. And of course, Kubrick was a huge chess player, chess fan, and even has playing chess in 2001 and all that. And so it's strange, and it makes me think, in some ways, that he faked his death. I mean, I just don't have coincidences, and that's two huge coincidences. So I don't know. I had a friend, a really good friend, who, speculating that Kubrick directed 9/11, right? And because in the complex of the World Trade Center in 2001, a building was finished, and it was exact like the monolith in 2001, and it was finished in early 2001. It did not get destroyed in the takedown, but I think it's even still there. No, they took it all down and rebuilt it. That's right. But that's not very much evidence for anything. But still curious that they would name, that they would make a building that looked just like the Black Monolith and finish it in early 2001, and the year that of course, the World Trade Centers went down was 2001. There's also another interesting thing, which I've talked about a little bit before, but not much. Both Mel Brooks and Stanley Kubrick lived in the Village in New York in the 50s. They probably knew each other. They're both Jewish. They both were filmmakers. They both lived in the Village. Highly unlikely they didn't know each other. That aside, there's a 1966 Get Smart, which is a show on TV directed and produced by Mel Brooks. And this one was called The Walls of Jericho Come Tumbling Down. And in this show, Maxwell Smart, who's a secret agent, they discover that every time this company builds a building, it falls apart, just crumbles into its own footprint. And so they hire Maxwell to go into the construction site of this new building that's being built called the Odyssey, which is going to house the space program. And so it's very important that Max find out what's going on with this building so it doesn't fall apart after it gets done being built. Well, Max finds the plans, and he has a famous shoe phone, and he calls up the chief and goes, "Chief, I think I've discovered what's going on." And he says, "Well, what is it?" And he says, "They're putting the bombs in the building while it's being built," right? And that was the big climax of the show and everything. And Freeman Fry, another good friend of mine, who I don't know where he is these days. He used to be a good conspiracy theorist. He actually interviewed the sub-architect, not the top architect of the World Trade Center. He's dead, but the guy that worked right below him. And in the interview with Freeman Fry, he says, "Oh no, we put the plastique in the building while it was being built because we knew it'd be so hard when the day came when the building had to come down. It'd be so hard to wire it that we just wired it up as we built it."
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a weird thing. The Odyssey, they called the building the Odyssey in this Maxwell Smart show, and there was a building coming down. It housed the space program. Kubrick's working on 2001, The Space Odyssey, at the same exact time. He's shooting it over in London. It's those weird coincidences that just gnaw at me all the time.
And Christopher Nolan's new film is going to be called The Odyssey.
Yeah, and Interstellar, of course, was his homage to Stanley Kubrick. The robots look like the black monoliths. The teacher tells Matthew McConaughey that we never really went to the moon. And the whole thing is this homage to 2001, but also to all of the works of Stanley Kubrick. And it's probably one of Nolan's more interesting films.
I agree. And that's wild about the World Trade Center and all that, because there was a lot of stuff with 9/11 that was super sketchy. Wasn't there a college art project or something that had to
Yeah,
do with dummies that was going on at that exact same time, and they were throwing dummies out of the
yeah,
windows or
yeah.
something?
It was the Israeli art students who were on, I think, the floor where the second airplane hit, floor 97, I think. It's been a while since I've looked into this, but they were their art project, which was a very strange art project, was to take a window out of the World Trade Center, put a cantilever out the window, and then take dummies and throw them out the window and film it, right? So people falling from the World Trade Center. That was the art project. And what's really interesting about that is that there is a picture of these 6 or 7 art students, and they're in the World Trade Center in their little art complex, and it's completely bare, the floor, except in the very back, you see a stack of boxes, right? And the boxes all have one number. I can't remember the number, but some number, like a 6-digit number. All the boxes have the same number on it. So, I saw the picture, and I zoomed in, I saw the numbers on the box, and I went to Google, and I just typed in the number. I didn't do anything else. I just typed in that number and hit, and it says, "Oh, this is the government code for plastic explosives." Like, what? So I don't know. I don't know. And it's just weird. That just happens to be the floor, I think, that the plane hit too. So, you got to wonder, because you really just got to wonder. I mean, it's just such a theater that just just don't know. But anyway, those Israeli art students are now safely back in Israel, so they're safe. Don't worry about them.
Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness we got them back and they're okay.
Yeah.
Chloe, thanks so much for becoming a channel member. Really appreciate your support of the show. So what do you think with Eyes Wide Shut? Because it's said that he showed this viewing to these people, like some of the executives and like the actors and like Tom Cruise and a few of the people. He had like a private screening in London with these people, and now people are saying that the end of the movie was changed or something was edited out of the end of the movie. Is there any way to confirm that there was? I mean, we have it in our movie, The Shining, that there's an entire whole other ending to The Shining that Kubrick cut out, but this wouldn't have been of Kubrick's doing. This would have been of the studio or somebody that was higher up that went in and chopped out some of the stuff to do with Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah, and so I don't know if he changed the ending. The ending is one thing that actually makes sense in the movie, but it's there's like swaths taken out where there's clearly something happened, and then in between the two edits, but you don't really know what happened. And then there's the whole sequence where Nicole Kidman has the dream, and the dream is she's at this orgy and they're all having sex, and then they start laughing at Tom Cruise, right? And you're like, well, wait, what's he trying to say here? And then there's other problems, like there's 13, a coven, witch's coven or a satanic coven has 13 members. It has 12, and then the center person. And in the orgy scenes, before the orgy scenes, there's a coven, a meeting of a coven. And in the coven, there's only 11 women and the single guy. So there's a one person missing. And so you have to wonder if the whole opening scene where Nicole is dancing with the Hungarian, if that isn't like her being seduced into this satanic cult, right? And Eyes Wide Shut is so interesting because everybody in Eyes Wide Shut knows that they're in a cult except for Tom Cruise. Even Nicole Kidman knows that she's in a cult. So they're all in a cult Only he doesn't know about it. And the whole movie is him wandering from one aspect of the occult to the next aspect of the cult until he's finally told by Sidney Pollack at the end, we're in a cult and you don't know it. Right. And so it's really, really, really very interesting. And, you know, as a film, because it wasn't edited in Kubrick's magnificent style, it falls a little flat, I think. And a lot of people couldn't understand it and they kind of just poo-pooed it and went away. But it's still a Kubrick film, so it's still got a lot of greatness in it. And, you know, I personally believe that Tom Cruise became a really great actor after that. All of his movies before that, he's a little flat, a little, and maybe even a little insincere. But after that, every movie he made, he was actually a good actor. And I think he got that from working with the master.
Yeah, there was an interview that I watched of him when I was making the movie where he was like crying because Kubrick died.
Oh yeah, I've seen that, and Nicole too. Yeah, and then there's a famous quote that Nicole Kidman tells everybody that Kubrick was on the set with her one day, and he said the most dangerous people in the world are the pedophiles. You're like, what? You know, what are you talking about? And here's the thing: when Tom and Nicole go to the party at the beginning of the movie, there's these two guys at the party, right? And we now know, of course, everybody at the party is in the cult, right? Except for Tom Cruise. And there's two guys, and they're just kind of in the background talking and everything. And it looks like a throwaway scene. And then at the very end of the movie, they're at Macy's. It's Christmas time, and they're with their daughter. And the daughter's wandering through the eerie teddy bears that are lurking over her in the aisle. Incredible shot, actually. And Nicole and Tom are having their conversation. But if you watch very carefully, at the very end of this hallway or whatever of toys, those two guys are there waiting, and they're looking at the little girl. So you really got to wonder what's going on. If they're in the cult, and they are, then you know what's going on here. And you know, so it was really a warning. And it came at an interesting time too. 1999 was the year The Matrix came out, and a year before that, I forget the name of the movie, Dark City came out. So these three movies all came out within a year and a half of each other, and all three movies are about a guy who doesn't know that he's surrounded by a cult or a matrix, right? And it's his discovery of it. And also The Truman Show came out at the same time. And The Truman Show is the same thing. It's a guy who doesn't know that he's in this thing, this reality. He thinks it's another kind of reality. And the movie, all four movies take you through this person, the protagonist's discovery that he's not living in a real world, that the world all around him is fake. And it's interesting that it happened just at the end of the 90s, that these four movies were made, and that you know, The Matrix gets, you know, all the praise, but personally, I think Dark City is a better movie than The Matrix. And I think Eyes Wide Shut would have been the best of them if Kubrick had been left to finish it himself.
There was another movie that came out that had Christian Bale in it, and I think it came out around the time that The Matrix came out, and it was kind of overlooked. I think it was called like Annihilation or something along those lines, but it was very Matrix-esque, and it got completely overshadowed by The Matrix because I think it might have came out before The Matrix.
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of these Gnostic-oriented movies that were coming out all at the same time, and you know, it's just one of those weird waves that happens in Hollywood. And it can't be because, you know, you're working on it can't be that The Matrix saw Dark City and then decided to remake it, because you're making a movie for 2 or 3 years before you shoot it. And so it only had a year before, you know, The Matrix came out. So they were almost done with it when Dark City came out. So, you know, it has to be like some kind of zeitgeist. In other words, it can't be like people copying each other. I'm sure Kubrick wasn't copying anyone. So
it was Equilibrium. Equilibrium was the name of the Christian Bale.
Yeah, and you know, it was actually a really heady time in movies. We were still had a lot of Equilibrium. Yes, I do remember that. We still had a lot of freedom. The boomers were starting to release control of the movie business finally after 25 years. And so these movies were made by like The Matrix was not, they weren't boomers, they were Xers. And although the director of Truman Show was a boomer, Jim Carrey was an Xer. So there was like this new blood coming into the movie business at that time. And I think you're actually seeing this happen again right now as the millennials are now moving into the movie business, and they're not real happy with what they're finding. So I expect a revolution in movies over the next 2 years, a serious revolution.
Well, I've been saying that Hollywood's dead in every interview that I've done promoting our documentary, and it seems like it's LA is basically all on fire, which is really wild. And I did a show on it the other day, and I was like, we should probably be way more focused on, other things other than, what the community is saying about it. Like, we should probably be more focused on, why the mayor was on vacation when this happened. Why weren't there any preventative measures taken by the mayor? Why, or the governor, Gavin Newsom? Why were the dams empty that would supply more water to fight the fires? Why aren't we raking the forest in California? And also, why was it reported that property insurance no longer covered fire insurance that reportedly happened a couple of months back? I mean, come on, give me a break. I mean, everyone knew that this thing, that this was just a ticking time bomb, that if it goes up, there's literally nothing that they can do about it, but they could have taken a lot of preventative measures. And what happens, and there's only people that could, ask these types of questions, right? They're distracted by a bunch of garbage. And I said the same thing about the Lahaina fires, which everyone started screaming DEWs and jumping to that conclusion. And I was like, well, before we jump to the conclusion of DEWs, we need to ask, why was the water turned off? Why weren't the alarms raised?
The brush wasn't taken out in Maui. They didn't remove the brush. Basic things. This is the thing. You hire people your politicians, you hire them to cover the basics, right? Yeah, they get lost in the weeds, but the basics, your emergency people like rescue squads and police cars have to stay, all fixed up and ready to go. Your fire department has to be 100%. You got to have all the precautions taken for things that naturally happen in your area. Then, after you've taken care of all the basics, then you can go off and do your transsexual holidays and flags and stuff. And that's all great and everything. But if you're doing that and not taking care of the basics, then that's a massive fail. And there's no way around it. It's a massive fail. Here's the thing, especially in Palisades, because I lived in LA for years. That's almost where the entire movie business lives. I mean, where all the gaffers and the lighting people and the set designers and not maybe, although a lot of big stars do live there, but I don't know if the movie business is going to come back from this nightmare. They're not going to have these. There's no way. Okay. It takes you 5 years to get a permit and to build a house in Los Angeles right now. 5 years. So they start right now. It'll be what, 2030 before they start breaking ground and putting up the house. Okay. And Hollywood and California is about to turn red because they're going to find out how screwed up the bureaucracy is in that state, and they're going to get really angry about it. So I wouldn't look for any houses being built, to be honest with you. I would look for speculators and sharks to move in right now, offering, say $2 or $3 on the buck on the property. So if it's worth, $500,000, they'll offer you 1.5 million, maybe, right? To really make it juicy and to get you, because that's cheap if you're BlackRock, right? I mean, you can afford to buy all of the Palisades, right? For 3 times the price. So I think that's what's going to happen. And then BlackRock's just going to use all their money and build gigantic apartments. The whole entire Pacific Palisades, except for the houses that didn't burn down, are very likely to be replaced and look a lot like China looks right now. So that's my biggest fear. And also, I want to point out that the 3 places that the fire broke out, and by the way, satellite imagery shows that all 3 fires started at the same exact moment. You might want to link to that so people don't start calling me names. And they're in the 3 poshest areas of Los Angeles. I mean, it hasn't hit Beverly Hills yet, or it's just now near Brentwood. But I mean, Malibu, Pasadena, and the Pacific Palisades is like some of the most valuable real estate on the entire planet. I mean, you got Mediterranean weather. It's beautiful there. I don't know. It's just the biggest tragedy I've ever seen in my life. And I don't think we'll ever get over it.
Well, this is CBS News. It says thousands of Los Angeles homeowners were dropped by their insurers before the Palisades fire. About 1,600 policies in the Pacific Palisades were dropped by State Farm in July. California Department of Insurance spokesman Michael Soler said that Thursday, email CBS Money Watch. An analysis of insurance data by CBS San Francisco last year found that State Farm also dropped more than 2,000 policies in 2 other Los Angeles zip codes, which included Brentwood and Calabasas, Hidden Hills, and Montenegro neighborhoods. So, I mean, what is going on? Like, do they have like the foresight to know that, oh wow, there's these giant fires? And I think that the speculation is that the reason that they dropped fire insurance, I don't know why you would drop fire insurance in a place that like California. I mean, California's on fire all the time. It's every year there's some kind of fire going on in California. So that would be the main thing that you would need if you lived in California, especially Southern California, is you would want fire insurance on your house.
You have to understand how business works, and the people that run the state do not understand that. They recently passed a law that said that they could not raise insurance. And so insurance is all about risk assessment, right? So you go out to a place and you look at your house and say, oh, well, you got a hillside full of brush over here. We're going to really sock you with fire insurance, or if you don't clean it up. And so California said you couldn't raise insurance rates anymore. Well, you're not going to stay in business very long if you can't adjust your rates to whatever the risk assessment is. So California is being ruled by complete idiots. And I think the chickens have finally come home to roost, and hopefully the state will recover and come back to common sense, which is what has to happen. We like the movie business. We want you to stay. And right now, I've never seen it more rickety. They can't make a hit movie. They can't even do anything. And now the whole their whole infrastructure has been undercut. We don't even know how many studios burned down. I mean, they're right in the path there.
Yeah, well, Biden has committed that he's going to use federal money for rebuilding LA.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about North Carolina?
Exactly. What about North Carolina? What about Lahaina? What did they get in Lahaina? $700 or something like that. And now Biden's saying that he's going to use federal money to completely rebuild LA. It's a freaking joke. President Joe Biden has already vowed that over the next 6 months, the federal government will pay 100%. It is 100% of disaster response costs connected to the wildfires ravaging Southern California. It's insane.
Yeah.
What did they do about North Carolina? They didn't do. I mean, the people in North Carolina are still struggling. That's still going on. Like, how long is it going to take to rebuild those parts of North Carolina? And then now he's just coming in saying, "Oh, well, we're going to completely rebuild LA. Don't worry about it, guys. We're going to use all of our federal money to completely rebuild LA."
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen under a Trump administration. He'll probably rescind that, or they'll make it very much many stipulations on that. But Yeah, Biden's destroying the place out on his way out the door. It's really kind of crazy. They talk about a peaceful transition. Well, my God, man, why don't you take your hands off the wheel for a minute instead of wrecking everything? So we got nothing but problems coming at us like a freight train, and so I don't know what we're going to do about it. At least we have capable people in charge, I think.
Yeah, hopefully, as long as we make it to the 20th, and people don't freak out about TikTok. People are freaking out about TikTok and the TikTok ban.
Kevin O'Leary's going to buy it. He says the deal's almost through, so I think he'll have it here within a day or two. So that'll be good.
Well, another thing that I found was not only was the mayor out of town during this, but she also basically defunded the fire department.
Yeah.
Did you see this?
Yep.
This is from the New York Post. LA Mayor Karen Bass cut fire department funding by 17.6 million, focused on homeless spending months before wildfires turned city into hellscape. And this wasn't even what that was the lowball number. She actually, if she had her way, it says in this article from the New York Post that if she had her way, the LA Fire Department budget would have been slashed by 23 million. So let's not rake the forest. Let's not, have our dams full of water. Let's defund the fire department. And also let's make it to where insurance companies no longer cover fire insurance.
Yeah. So, there's the law of coincidences, and generally when you're doing an investigation and you hit more than two coincidences, every alarm bell supposedly should be going off in you, because that's just way too many coincidences. One is troubling enough, two is really bad, but when you get 6 or 7 coincidences, that's usually a sign of foul play. So I know people don't want to hear it and all that, but this has been going on for thousands of years. They've flushed people out of nice places using all sorts of, wars and all sorts of tactics, and they steal the land. And that's what's going on here, I believe. I don't see how a regular Joe is going to be able to afford to build a house. Since those houses were built, lumber prices have gone up like 5,000%. So it's really expensive to build a house right now. And so I just don't see it. I don't see it. And California will make sure that it'll all turn into high rises, density packed in, 15-minute cities. I predict that they divide. They say that Los Angeles is too big a city to run the way it is, and they're going to break it up into 15-minute cities, probably about 15 or 20 different 15-minute cities. And then it's all going to be done like right in front of our eyes, and there's not going to be anything that we can do about it, except make people know about it.
Well, we were both just in LA filming for the documentary last year, and that
it was already
it is a cesspool. It's just complete and total garbage. I don't understand how anybody could possibly live there. It's just so bad.
I almost got mugged, as you know, in that motel out by the pool. You were sleeping, and I was out there having my morning coffee, and this guy comes glaring at me walking by, and I was like, "Holy shit! I better not be here." And I just ran into my hotel room and locked the door, and he came back looking for me. So he was I was an easy rob, I'm sure. He was a big guy too, and LA just looks so seedy. I couldn't believe it. I was just so shocked by how much it had deteriorated since I'd been there last, which is maybe 10 years earlier. So I feel sorry for LA. It's not their fault that they have crappy leaders, because I personally don't believe that their elections are real. I can hardly believe that Adam Schiff would have beaten Steve Garvey. Steve Garvey is like the biggest baseball hero in California. Everybody worships Steve Garvey, and he still got beat by this little weasel. So I don't know. It looks like it's fixed to me. One party state fixing everything, and I don't know how you're going to break it.
Well, people are saying that these, because I've talked to a few people that live in LA and during this time, and they essentially are saying that this was like arson. These were arsonists that
Yep.
started these fires, and I'm interested to see what way they're going to spin this and what they're going to do, because if you remember in, I think it was the end of 2020 or maybe 2021, where pretty much the entire West Coast was all on fire. Like all of California was on fire, Oregon was on fire, up into Washington. Like I was living in Southern California during that time, and you could walk out and it looked like a freaking hellscape. It looked like a nuclear bomb had went off. Like there was so much smoke that it blocked out the sun. Like you could stare directly at the sun and it not hurt your eyes. It was the wildest thing. And it was like that for like 3 days. I was like, what is going on? This is super apocalyptic. And this was like at the end of 2020 or beginning of 2021. And they said that that fire was started because of a gender reveal party that went wrong and
Oh,
fireworks. Do you remember that?
yeah. That was weird. Yeah, well, but where I live, it's quite beautiful where I live. But if I take my binoculars and I look up the 14,000-foot mountains that are here, and I look towards, around 10,000 feet, there's not a living tree. I mean, they're all dead, and there's tens of thousands of them. The BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, owns all that land, and they're not taking those trees down. And they're not tendering the forest or taking care of anything. They're letting it just sit there every year, just waiting for a lightning strike to hit, and then we will be all burned out of here. And then it's a nice place, so probably our little 2 and 3 bedroom houses will all be replaced by posh mansions and everything. And that seems to be the plan, to take every nice place and flush everybody out of it. Because you got to remember, in the Pacific Palisades, a lot of those people are boomers. They bought those homes 40 years ago for almost nothing, right? Even longer than that, for almost nothing. And those homes now are worth, or they're worth 15, 20 times what those people bought it for. And so they're not collecting the property taxes that that they think they should be taking, right? And because of Prop 13, all the property taxes are frozen back when they bought the house. So the state's not making anything off of any of this. And did the state? I don't know. I can't wax. Alex Jones is going crazy right now, saying that it's a giant conspiracy, saying that it's all done to take the land and rebuild the whole city. And I don't want to go that far, but it sure is suspicious and convenient. And you can just see how you could just literally make trillions of dollars off of this kind of deal.
Yeah, and if something is, kind of already going down, like would you not push it even further to make it go down quicker and then rebuild the entire thing? I mean,
Exactly.
it's a good strategy right there. But the Guardian is saying that the fires were possible link between New Year's fireworks. They're saying that the New Year's fireworks, caused the Palisades blaze.
Oh, I see. Like a coal or something got burned up and then just stayed there burning. And then it's a slight chance that it could be, but pretty slight. I would say there's no way that 3 pieces of coal from fireworks are going to start up and flare up at the same time. But they're doing it, and they're reworking the whole world. And we know by looking into the past, past photographs and things, that there appears to have been a reset of some kind in like the 1860s in Europe and in the United States. And don't forget, all through the 1800s leading up into the early 20th century, the United States was hit by some of the most incredible fires that we've ever seen. The Chicago fire happened on the same day that the fire in, I believe it was Wisconsin, and another one in Michigan started, giant fires. fires that the people that lived through the fires said that it sounded like bombs going off, and hurricane force winds. And they said that the fire wasn't on the ground, it was up in the sky, that the sky was on fire. And we still to this day don't know what caused those three fires to all erupt on the same moment, on the same day. And they aren't close to each other. They're hundreds of miles apart. So it's not like it was like close by. And of course, we know the Chicago fire, man, it burned down the entire city of Chicago. I mean, there wasn't anything left. And then you look at the San Francisco fire in 1905, and the buildings looked like they've been damaged from the outside, almost like they got bombed or something. So a lot of mysterious things happened in the United States in the 1800s. A Philadelphia fire burned down all of Philadelphia. Seattle fire burned down all of Seattle. It was quite amazing. So in Seattle, they came into a forest and to mine, right? And they built all these shanties, right? Same thing in San Francisco. They built all these shanties, right? There were poor people coming from the east looking to make their millions, right? So they came to, and they did not build really nice places. They built kind of crappy places in these towns. And then, boom, as soon as the boom is over, big fires come through, burn everything out. And now the rich people come in and they rebuild San Francisco into a really nice city, and Chicago into a really nice city, and Seattle into a really nice city, and all the places where the fires were. And it is very odd. And it's like a plan somehow that they flush everybody out when they're ready to redo the whole thing. And they use fire, earthquakes, and floods.
Terry says reset fires. I mean, that's kind of what it kind of sounds like. Didn't the Chicago fire happen semi around the Chicago World's Fair?
No, 1871 was when those fires happened. The World's Fair was in 1891, ostensibly as a show to show the world how awesome the rebuilt Chicago was. That was the whole reason for the World's Fair, right? So they put their little World's Fair there, and like 30 million people, something like that, came to Chicago, and they had rebuilt the whole place, and now they're showing it up like showing off a new car in a car place, right? And rebuilt, and they all moved to Chicago after that, and Chicago became the second biggest city in the United States for the next almost 100 years. So, you know, the hindsight is 2020, and so you look back at these things and you can see it. If you really want to get a real handle on the fires in the 1800s and how really awful they were, Randall Carlson did a series of shows on his I think it's the Randall Carlson show on YouTube about it. He did an extensive documentary series on the fires of America, and shows you how really strange they are, and that they're almost, when you hear Randall Carlson talk about those fires, you almost think there are aliens in spaceships shooting stuff down and starting these fires. Because how could three fires, hundreds of miles apart, all start up on the same day, at the same time? Now, Randall thinks that it might be, he has correlated these fires to comets passing by. And he says that it might be, shrapnel from the comet, flying down and hitting the earth and starting. And that could be because, the meteor showers are us passing through a comet's tail, right? That's what causes meteor showers. I love them out here in the mountains. They were so spectacular that I always make sure I stay up and watch them. And so, yeah, I can see that. But that's a natural explanation for the weird fires. However, the fires in California in the past few years, they've got a high strangeness about them. And I haven't fixated on it yet, but when I look at the footage of flying over the Palisades, I can't quite tell. Are all the trees still there? It's kind of weird, but it sort of looks like the trees are all still there. They still got green on them, and so I might be wrong on that. So I'm having trouble with that one.
Well, when you think about it, it takes a long time to burn a log.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to take a really long. I mean, if you throw a giant log on a fire, like that thing's
Bark
going to burn for freaking long time.
yeah, and the
And
bark has
the trees in California are really big. Like they're not any stubby little
yeah,
trees. There's some big old trees.
there are. Well, they've been there a while. Yeah, so are we remaking the place? Well, if this happens again, then the answer is yes. Because then now we're way past coincidences. So if this happens in another nice place, and I just really have to wonder. I've never been to that area of North Carolina that got hit by the hurricane, but I've seen video of it, and weather looks pretty nice there. It's just a bunch of hillbillies, right? And in their shacks and stuff, and they're kind of fleshing them all out. And those little mountains look pretty nice to put a $3 million mansion on it. So I don't know if that's what's going on there or not. I'd have to go there. I don't know if it's a really nice place. I suspect it is.
Yeah, and if you could put like apartment complexes or duplexes or something like that. I was looking into there's like some kind of deed or something that you can fill out for the Department of Agriculture where you can get land for really cheap. Each state has its own type of version of this. And I was looking at, signing up for that and, buying a plot of land, and you get it for cheaper if you build your house on that plot of land.
Yeah.
And I was like looking it up for Colorado, and Colorado only does it for like companies and for low income housing. So you can't buy the land and get it for cheap to build your house on it. You can only buy the land and get it if you want to put low income housing projects on it.
Yeah, then they've passed laws now that you can't put an RV on a vacant lot if you're building your house there. So now they're making it really difficult for guys. Like I built my own house in my late 30s, and one of the most incredibly exciting things I ever did in my life. I learned so much, and I worked so hard, and eventually sold it for a lot of money. And and it was a great experience. And now they're making it so difficult for a guy like you, Ryder, to go build a house somewhere. Now I think it's a little looser where I live in Colorado because we're run by a bunch of hippies, and they kind of lessened all the rules here. But I think you'd probably be wise to go to some place like, I don't know, Kansas or Texas or somewhere, because they have a lot more building laws. But here in Colorado, this state is being completely taken over by the rich, completely taken over. Lake City, Colorado, it's $4.5 million to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. Crested Butte, Colorado, it's $6 million to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. It's just, what are you going to do? My house, I bought it for almost nothing. Right? If they assess it at $2 million, say in a year from now, I can't pay that. I can't pay taxes on that. I'm going to have to sell it. And what can I do? I can't afford the taxes on it. So, I purposely bought a low budget house thinking I could keep, my taxes low, but it's not going to happen. They need the money. They're not going to slash their budgets, their salaries for you. So they're not going to do it. So it's going to be a big crisis, and it's going to be millennials are going to have and the Zers are going to have a very, very hard time finding houses. And I think they want you to live in apartments. They want you to rent everything. They don't want you to own anything. They want you to rent. And
you'll own nothing and be happy, Jay.
Well, you won't be happy, but you'll own nothing. I guarantee the first part's true. You need to own things. Ownership is responsibility. You don't say, if you rent things, you don't care about it. Who cares about a rental car, right? Leave trash everywhere, you spill stuff on it. You're not going to care. But if it's yours, that's a whole different thing. And so I think that the whole idea is just another form of Marxism with a pretty face. And I don't think I think actually this is the hill to die on. We're just about on that hill that where the bayonets have to come out, because I think we're close to the hill now. Where okay, if we don't fight now, we lose everything, and I'll see where we're going. I feel like the country is in a psychologically better shape than it has been in the last few years, and I can feel an uptick in optimism, and so we'll see. I don't know. They put Trump in such a trap. I don't know if even he's smart enough to get out of the traps that they've laid for him. So we'll see. Don't
Well, the good
trust
thing
him.
about him being in there is that it's a second term, and he doesn't have to campaign. He doesn't have to spend half of his term campaigning for running for president again. So he has a solid 4 years to really
Yeah,
do everything, and so I mean I think that's a good sign. But I think a strange thing about these fires is that quietly the drone story just kind of went away, Jay. Like nobody's talking about the drones anymore.
they're
Nobody
still
cares
there.
about
They're
New
still going.
Jersey, and we actually had one in between that as well. We also had the fog. So we had the drones, and then the fog was happening during that. The fog was very short lived. It only went on for a couple of days. Which there's a series on Amazon that came out like right when this people started talking about the fog, that is about the fog.
Really?
So it's so interesting, and it's about exactly like with the drones and the suitcase briefcase nuke thing. You had that movie on Netflix called Carry On, that was about a suitcase nuke getting on a plane. So they're blending reality with you know m- movies and television and media. But it's so interesting how like one event happens, and then it's about that for a really long period of time. Well, not long period of time, but short period of time. And then something else happens, and then that thing takes the place of the thing that was going on before. And then we didn't have any answers about the thing that happened before. And then something else comes along and takes the place of that one that also happened. And we didn't have any answers about that either. It's like this revolving door of stuff that we don't get any answers to. It's just a bunch of theories and then speculation, and then it's moved on to the next thing. And I thought that the drone thing, we were going to finally get something conclusive on exactly what was happening with the drone. I thought that was like one of the most interesting ones that's happened in recent years.
Yeah, it is. And, because there's really two types of things that were going on in the sky. One were definitely hardware or drones with lights on them, which, by the way, I own like 5 drones. None of them have any lights on them. So I don't know where they're getting drones with lights. It's very dangerous to fly a drone at night, even with lights. If you don't have night vision, it's dangerous to fly a drone in the daytime. So, I mean, as far as losing the drone. Um, and But there's other things, which are these orb-like plasmoids that are up there, and they're flying around and doing things that no drone could ever do, taking 180-degree turns at really fast speeds and all this. At the same time that this is happening, science is beginning to openly discuss the idea that there is plasma beings who have intelligence and sentience. There's a paper that came out in February 24 and another one that came out in October 24, right before this thing started up, saying that airplanes should be worried about hitting these plasma objects, and that there may be airplane crashes caused by these plasma objects in the atmosphere. And don't forget, another weird thing that's been going on lately is what? There's been a number of airplane crashes. Very strange. There used to not be hardly any. Now we're getting them like once every 3 or 4 weeks. So, yeah, there they are. That's a plasma being. And if you want to really see a good one, type in NASA Space Shuttle Tether Experiment, and we'll see a whole bunch of these objects, beings, whatever they are, flying around this electric wire that was hanging out of the space shuttle. So these things are real, and science is now realizing that they have predatory action. They can sense objects. They are curious. They seem to be attracted to things that are electrical, like electrical power stations, electrical wires, and they seem to get rejuvenated by being around it. Plasma is electricity and gas mixed together, and you can see it has like a skin on it. It has like this skin, and you can see that the nature of it is kind of foggy and misty. And I think that the word mystical and mystic comes from people's interaction with these plasma beings. And I think the real intelligent aliens are not little green men from Mars. I think they're these plasma beings. I think they're the thing that is causing, and people, when people get really close to these things, they begin reporting missing time, strange, altered states, odd experiences, because your brain is plasma, and so it's interacting with the plasma of your brain. And I think a lot of the things that we think of are aliens or ghosts or other things are actually our interaction with these plasma objects. And it's kind of amazing how this is happening, and people are videotaping them all over the place. What's interesting is that I predicted a year or so ago on my show Reality Check that we would start seeing these plasma beings more often now, because we're moving out of the Kali Yuga into the Dvapara Yuga. And so the galactic emanations from Galactic Center are increasing. And this is what my first two books are about. And I predict that as galactic emanations come in, we're going to start, the veil between realities is going to get thinner and thinner until we're going to actually start interacting with these beings in very profound ways. And I believe that, ever since the aliens started coming in the 1950s and talking to humans, they're always really concerned about our environment and about our ecosystem and how we're ruining the earth. And that always struck me strange that aliens would give a shit about, the earth if they don't live here. But if they're plasma beings and they live in our atmosphere and they're intelligent, then they're going to be concerned about what's going on. And you're blowing off nuclear weapons into the atmosphere probably alerted to them that there was something going on. And, also, as just an aside, Oppenheimer was a plasma physicist. The guy who invented the bomb was a plasma physicist. All right. So it's very, very, very likely that the atomic bomb is a plasma weapon. In other words, they're using the crushing of the atoms to create so much plasma that it blows off and creates a huge explosion. And if these plasma beings are up in the atmosphere, they're going to see it and detect it and know exactly what's going on, and probably scaring the hell out of them, if not killing many of them too. So that's one of my favorite things. It's what our next film is about. It's called The Invisible Universe. And I'm hoping that we're shooting the pilot and that we can have a series. That's what I'd really like. That's what I'm really hoping for. A several season series, sort of like Ancient Aliens, where we explore plasma and all the dimensions of it. It's afterlife, plasma interacting with us, plasma causing ghostly things to happen, disappearances, altered states. There's a million different subjects that we want to explore in this. We've got Andrew Collins is in it, Robert Temple is in it, I'm in it, and Ryder's going to edit it and maybe even direct some of the episodes, because I'm not really into directing anymore, but I did direct this episode with my friend Helena Resner. And so I'm really excited that the plasma thing's all coming out right when we're just getting done shooting the first episode of this series. That's all on the same subject. And we've had amazing timing. I mean, our first film, JFKX, came out on the 60th anniversary, caused a real ruckus. And then A Clockwork Shining comes out, right when the interest in Stanley Kubrick is starting to come back again. And now we're on to the plasma universe, which is probably a little bit safer subject than the other two. And now everybody's interested in the plasma universe. So, they say success, 90% of success is timing. So maybe that's what our game is.
Well, I had Lynn Buchanan on the other day, and we were talking about how, because Sean Ryan had not Ed May, but Skip Atwater on his show, and Skip was talking about how he would have these dreams and he would have interactions with aliens and all that. And he would ask the aliens, extraterrestrials. He's saying that, you know, how do you get from one place to the other? And the extraterrestrial told him that it's like in a Rubik's cube, and then if you just imagine a Rubik's cube, and then imagine each side of the Rubik's cube having another Rubik's cube, and then if you just twist that, it was some kind of metaphor that the the alien was giving him apparently. And he said, well, the alien said, we don't really go anywhere. We stay exactly where we are. And then that made me think, well, okay, well, because some people think that I'm completely opposed to the extraterrestrial hypothesis, and I am opposed to the extraterrestrial hypothesis because I don't think that they've ever been here. I don't think that they've ever visited, but I don't discount the idea that some other life may exist somewhere else in the universe. And if they were so advanced, Jay, that they were able to essentially bilocate into our reality while they're not really leaving their planet or wherever it is that they live, then it would basically be like duplicating themselves here in another physical form. And that's kind of like what the extent of remote viewing does. Like Lynn was explaining how like there's this controlled remote viewing aspect that Ego Swan talked about. And at the end of that development, there's this process that's called, I forget exactly what he said that it was, but it was essentially like you can duplicate your body in another space time and then influence reality outside of your body. So you're essentially bilocating to a different location on Earth, and you can interact with things. Like you can move things around and touch people and everything. And I'm like, well, that almost sounds like what paranormal activity also is, like ghosts and stuff like that. It could just be a really advanced remote viewer that is just bilocating and you're catching a glimpse of them. But then that also kind of relates to this plasmoid idea as well, because that might be what you kind of show up as.
No, that's exactly what you do. So, the experiment, I forget what it's called, where they take a particle and they split like an electron off of it. And then they have the one part of the particle in Germany, the other part in Hawaii. And the two scientists are talking to each other and say, okay, hit it with a proton or electron. And they hit the particle with electron at the same time that they both respond, or they hit one with electron, the other one responds, right, immediately in real time. Okay, so what is going on is they're not really separated. The plasma body that surrounds it is still connected. It's a small tendril called the Sushumna in the Hindu tradition. And so these plasmas can be as small as a millionth of the width of a human hair and still be intact, where you can't see them. And so what the remote viewing is literally your astral body travels through the plasma stream out, going wherever it's going, and it takes in the information, and it can interact with people and all sorts of things. The key to all the new science that's coming out is plasma. It's all the exotic technologies that they're working on at Skunk Works and all of that. It's all plasma. It is the fourth type of nature. So you have solids, liquid, gases, and plasma. In alchemy, you have earth, water, air, and fire. Earth is solid, air is gas, water is liquid, and fire is plasma. Plasma is the secret fire in alchemy, the fire that does not burn. And you read all these alchemical texts. What, a secret fire? What? A fire that doesn't burn? What is this talking about, right? And it's because and what the alchemists are doing is they're using laboratory methods to create plasma, literally create plasma, and then to communicate with the plasma. And then the plasma gives them all sorts of information, but also One of the parts of alchemy is, of course, it gives you a longer life. You study alchemy and you live a long time. Well, what is that about? Well, living a long time is about literally absorbing plasma, absorbing plasma into your body. And so they have various techniques, yoga, all sorts of qigong, all sorts of techniques that have been developed to create the qi or the prana, which is plasma, into your body so that your body radiates plasma. And the more that you can suck in this plasma, the more you're healthy. And so also using light dark practices, you can increase the plasma body that's all around. It's the etheric body, it's the astral body, it's the key to everything. And it's an alchemical secret that is now breaking loose. And it's going to break loose across the world because we're making a film about it. And it's really, in some ways, the final secret. And it's a secret they don't want you to know about. And the reason they don't want you to know about it is because they want you sick and they want you tired and they want you depressed and everything. And once you understand that there's this entire invisible universe that surrounds us and imbues us, you become happy. You become optimistic about life. And they don't want that. They want you to be sad. They want you to be terrified.
Yeah, Lynn Buchanan called this perfect site integration. Did you see that interview with Tucker Carlson and that one gentleman that said that he would, I think he said, I can't remember the guy's name, but he said that he would take plasma from his young son and then inject it into his body and it increased his telomeres and like it decreased the aging
Absolutely.
process and all that?
Yep, that's exactly what's going on. And they know this has all been discovered, by the way, already. It's been discovered for like 30 years. This is the big problem they're facing right now is they're being forced by insiders are saying, you told me 10 years ago that you're going to release all this information in 10 years, and now it's 10 years and you're not releasing it, and you're going to tell me 10 years again now, right now, and I'm not taking it. So I'm going public because I'm afraid that what I'm doing working for you is illegal. And I'm not going to jail for you. And so they're starting to break through. And Stephen Greer is talking about all these insiders are now coming to him. And apparently it's all coming out in the next few weeks. And you're going to see it's all going to be about plasma. It's all going to be about objects that are plasma powered. And there's no way to stop what's about to happen. There's no way. And it's going to be both amazing and frightening at the same time. And when human beings finally have the power of the plasma universe in their hand, we better become a very responsible race of beings because that stuff is powerful beyond belief. But I believe we're very close to medical breakthroughs with plasma. I believe we're very close to vehicles powered by plasma. In other words, free energy without any waste, being able to go from New York to Australia in a couple hours. And I believe that we're on the edge of free energy, absolute free energy. I think it's going to happen probably in 2025. And Trump named a high-tech businessman to run the Navy. Well, the Navy is the department that has all these secrets. And the best way to get these secrets out without everybody accusing you of letting the earth get destroyed because you wouldn't give out all of these free energy machines is to have them look like they got invented by high-tech companies. So you just give the machine to a tech company and say, here, create a pedigree around this invention. Say this guy found this and that, and that's how it got invented, and then put it out as fast as you can. I think that's what's about to happen. Because you see, Trump can't save the economy. We're $100 trillion in debt, in real debt, but he can grow us out of it. In other words, if we suddenly, everybody has free energy, I can produce widgets, on my ranch without blowing a hole in my electricity costs. Well, you're going to see a decentralization of everything, and everyone will, and that's what free energy will do, is decentralize everything. and we can take down all the hydroelectric plants, all the nuclear power plants, get rid of all the ugly telephone poles everywhere. And I think that this is the beginning of a kind of a strangely enough, a kind of a golden age.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, I would.
Did I lose you?
I clicked out of there somehow. Something, I got completely, completely kicked out of the chat. They kicked me out of the entire thing, out of the studio. But I hope that happens. I hope that we get free energy at some point. I mean, people have been talking about it for a really long time. I don't know if I trust Stephen Greer though.
I don't trust Stephen Greer, but I know the science behind 0 point energy, and I know it works. And so the problem up till now, and I got to go after this, is that everybody thinks they're going to make gazillions of dollars off of it. Like Eric Dollard, all of them, and they, you just got to give it out for free. That's what has to happen. If you've got the invention, put it out on the internet for free. Let us go build them. You'll get famous and you'll be rich. I trust me, you will be, because everyone will know that you're the guy that did it. And they'll make movies about you and documentaries about you and everything. So don't worry about getting rich. Just get the dang thing out. Too many people have gone down. I've known some of them. One of them was an editor of an energy magazine. He got murdered in his own home. So, it's a dangerous world, but we're right on the edge of it shifting. And the cabal has so much to do right now that they can't control everything. So this is the time to act. And if we don't act now, I don't think we're going to be able to pull a victory out of this.
Well, thanks for coming on, Jay. Really appreciate it. Can you let people know where to find you online and also where they can find the documentary, A Clockwork Shining?
Yeah. So jweidner.com. You can find all my free stuff. All of my films are either on Gaia or on Amazon. And JOKX was our last film. Our new film is A Clockwork Shining, which is about MK Ultra in Hollywood. And it's now up international, as they say, on Vimeo. And I hope you'll put a link down below, I'm sure. And by the way, we've gotten quite a number of sales. I just got one here about 5 minutes ago. I don't know if it was one of your viewers or whatever, but it just rang up that I just got another sale. So it's doing really well on Vimeo. I think you guys will really like it. And if you got friends in Canada or anywhere around the world where they can't get it, give them an email and tell them that they can now watch it.
Yep, you can watch it on Vimeo and worldwide in Canada, anywhere across the world, even if you're not in the UK or not in the United States. Thanks, Jay, for coming on. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone in the chat. See ya. Thanks for being here in the chat, everyone. Appreciate each and every single one of you guys. It means a lot to me. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button, help the channel and the algorithm, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications, and the link to watch it on Vimeo is in the description of this video and pinned to the top of the chat. See you guys next time.